doubts clarification. Okay, what are the majority of the people facing the issue? First one is people facing issues with XML data. XML data. The reason for this is in Java 11 JAXB support removed. So we have to add JAXB API related dependencies in the pom.xml. Dependencies in pom.xml. The reason for this is in Java 11 JAXB, in the Java 11 version, JAXB support removed, so we have to add JAXB API related dependencies in pom.xml. If you are using Java 11 or higher versions, If you are using Java 1.8, no need to add the JAXB dependencies because JAXB is inbuilt in Java 1.8. If you are using Java 1.8 version, then no need to add JAXB dependencies because JAXB is part of JDK. Okay guys, this was issue 1. And the second issue that I have observed, people are facing issues with Lombok. People are facing issues with the Lombok. If Lombok is not working, in your IDE, then you have to install Lombok into your IDE. What is the procedure for that? Go to Lombok jar location and execute the below command. Go to Lombok jar location and execute below command. Go to Lombok jar location and execute below command. What is that command? Java space hyphen jar space Lombok jar file. Lombok jar file. You have to execute this command. Then you can select the IDE. Once this command is executed, when we execute this command, it will open the window, select the IDE location and click on install. This command will open pop-up. Select IDE location and install it and restart IDE. Install it and restart your IDE. Okay, then Lombok will work for you in the system. These are the two major issues I have observed yesterday in the people laptops. Got it. Fine guys, yesterday's session was completely for doubts clarification. When I have seen your doubts, I have observed that people are saying that in my system XML data is not working. The reason is Java version. Up to Java 10, that JAXB is available in the JDK only. So you need to no need to add any dependency separately. But when it comes to Java 11 version, JAXB support removed from the Java 11, you need to add JAXB dependency manually. You need to add the JAXB dependency manually in the pom.xml file. You got that? Then I have seen that people are saying that Lombok is not working. So the reason is your Lombok is not installed successfully. So go to Lombok jar and execute this command. This command will open a pop-up. Select the IDE location and install it. Then restart the IDE. Then Lombok will work for you. Okay, got it. Fine guys. Next. The next thing is, today we are going to understand one small concept in the REST API, which is called as heteros. There is a small concept called heteros. Heteros stands for hypermedia as an engine for application state. So heteros stands for hypermedia as an engine for application state. Okay, so this is called heteros. The meaning is hypermedia as an engine for application state. It is highly recommended to represent our response in the hypermedia format. Heteros represents that. Heteros saying that we have to represent our REST API response in hypermedia format. Heteros saying that we have to represent our REST API response in the hypermedia format. Example, Google. Google search engine. Okay, now guys, see here, when we search for something in the Google, it will provide you the response in the hypermedia format only. When we search for anything in Google, it will provide response in hypermedia format. Okay, now let's go to Google and search for something in the Google, guys. Let's go to Google, search for something in the Google. Java interview questions. Okay, when I search for something in the Google, is it directly giving me interview questions? Okay, or it is giving some hyperlinks for me to click, providing the links. It is providing me the links. When I click on this link, then I'm getting the actual response. Are you able to understand? Hypermedia format as a response. Okay, same thing that Google is doing. Heteros represents hypermedia as an engine for application state. Heteros saying that we have to represent our REST API response in hypermedia format. The best example for that is Google search engine. When we search for anything in Google, it will provide response in hypermedia format. Now let's see what is a heteros, what Google is saying about a heteros. Okay, now hypermedia as the engine of application state is the constraint of the REST application architecture that distinguish it from other network application architectures. With the heteros, a client interacts with the network application whose application servers provide the information dynamically through the hypermedia. That means when a client sends a request to the server will provide the response to the client in hypermedia format through links. Okay, by using that links, clients can access that. By using those links, client can access. Spring Heteros provides some APIs to create REST representation that follow the Heteros principle when working with the Spring, especially using Spring MVC. Okay, good. Spring Heteros, Spring Boot configure, register support for entity links, wire up message converter support, Spring Boot configuring. All these things will be available in the Heteros. Guys, do you understand what is the meaning of a Heteros? Can you read this statement? Hypermedia as the engine of application state, Heteros, is a constraint of the REST application architecture that distinguishes it from other network application architecture. This Heteros is one of the REST API principle. With the Heteros, a client interacts with a network application whose application servers provides information dynamically through hypermedia. When a client sends a request, server should provide the response to the client in the links format. By using the links, clients are going to access the application resources. Are you clear with this one? Are you clear with this one? Now, see the images of a heteros, what the heteros is saying that. Now, look at this image, guys. Look at this image. Look at this image. Look at this image now. What it is saying that whenever you send a request. Now, see here, it is sending, whenever we send a request to the server, it is giving the response. Do you have only response, or you have some hyperlinks also in the response? Do you have only response, or you have some hyperlinks also in the response? Can you see that there are some hyperlinks available in the response? Yes, we are not only getting the response, we are getting response with some hyperlinks also. Okay, how to build that response with the hyperlinks, that we are going to learn today by using heteros concept. Samjha? What I am trying to say about heteros? Hypermedia as an engine for application state. When we search for anything in Google, it will provide the response in hypermedia format. Now, in REST API also, in REST API, we can build the logic to provide the response in the hypermedia format. In REST API, we can build such a kind of logic to send response to clients using hypermedia. Response to clients in hypermedia format. In REST API, we can build such kind of logic to send response to clients in hypermedia format. For example, I'm going to give you one response here, example response. Okay, in the JSON format, I'm going to take book ID. In the JSON format, I'm going to take book ID 101. Then I'm going to take book name. I will specify the book name as a Spring, and I will specify book author. Some author name I am going to specify, Rod Johnson. I will specify book author as Rod Johnson. Then here I will specify links. Then I will specify links here. I will create one link. Self URL, something like this. Any name you can give for that. Self URL. Now I will say that localhost :9090/books, like this. Now http :localhost :9090/books. Whenever you send a request to get the data in the book data by using one book ID, I will construct a response like this for you, and in that response I will construct one hyperlink also, which is used to access all the books data. You are sending a request to get one book record based on the book ID. Okay, but what I am telling to you here, example, API response with heteros. API response with heteros. API response with heteros. If I use heteros, then how my API response looks like? As of now, we have seen how to construct the response in the JSON format, in the XML format, and sending to the client. But now we are going to include one link also in the response. This is called heteros concept. Are you clear with the heteros introduction, guys, theoretically? Are you able to understand the heteros concept theoretically? Yeah, the doubts that you are having, Mr. Who is that? You are getting null response, Mr. REST controller not returning the value. Dev Prasad, I will check it at the end. Okay? Something, I think you might missing some annotations, we'll check it. Right, now let's come to heteros, hypermedia as an engine for application state. Hetios saying that we have to represent our REST API response in hypermedia format. The best example that we use in our daily life is Google search engine. Okay, when you search for something in the Google, what is happening? When you search for something in the Google, what is happening? Response is coming in the hypermedia format. When we search for anything in Google, it will provide the response in the hypermedia format. In a REST API, we can build such kind of logic to send response to clients in the hypermedia format. API response with the Hetios. Okay, book data I am taking and it is giving the self URL. Okay, so what is this? Client is asking for your book information with the book ID. Along with that book response, along with the book details, I am constructing one hyperlink also, so that user can get all books by clicking on this link. User can get this link. Okay, you can give external links also, any link, whatever the link that you want, you can give it. Related to your REST API. Related to your REST API, whatever the links you want to create for other endpoints. In your REST API, for other endpoints, you can create the links like this. For other endpoints, you can create the links like this. Okay. Now, development. In order to develop REST API with the Hetios, in Spring Boot, we have a Spring Boot starter Hetios. To develop Spring Boot application with Hetios, we have below starter. Spring Boot people provided one starter called Spring Boot starter Hetios. Spring Boot starter Hetios. Okay, how we are having web starter, JPA starter. Similarly, we are having one Hetios starter. How we are having web starter, data JPA starter, like that. We are having one more starter which is called Hetios. What is the purpose of this Hetios starter? What is the purpose of this Hetios, which is used to develop our application with Hetios? Okay guys, I'm taking one example which is already implemented with the Hetios. I will give you a walkthrough of that application guys, because it's very simple. There is no much coding changes. It's not difficult also. Let me show you the Pom.xml files first. Okay, because already we developed several REST APIs. Now I don't want to waste our time by creating same kind of projects every day. Good. Now let me go to Pom.xml of our application. What are the dependencies that I have added? Web starter will be available. Hetios starter will be available. Web starter, Hetios starter is available. Web starter is available. DevTools available. Lombok available. And Tomcat starter. Then test dependence. Okay. These are the dependencies that I have added in my application. Okay. In the Pom.xml. Step 1. Create the Spring Boot application with the below starters. How to create our application? Now we know how to create a Spring Boot project. Create Spring Boot application with below starters, with the below dependencies. I can say with the below dependencies. Okay, what are the dependencies? First one is web starter, Spring Boot starter web, Spring Boot starter web, Spring Boot starter Hetios. This is the new dependency that we need to add guys. Spring Boot starter Hetios, Project Lombok, DevTools. Project Lombok for generating setters, getters. Then we will go for DevTools. Spring Boot, DevTools. These are the dependencies that we are creating. Which is the new dependency in this project guys? Which is the new dependency in this project? Which is the new dependency in this project? Hetios is the new dependency. Can you guys see my Pom.xml now? Can you guys see my Pom.xml now? Boot starter is available. Spring Boot starter Hetios available. Spring Boot starter web is available. Spring Boot DevTools available. Okay. Lombok is available. Tomcat by default will come. Test also will come by default. After this, we need to create our binding class guys. We need to create one binding class. What is the purpose of binding class? To represent the response. Create a binding class to represent a response. Create binding class to represent a response. Generally, we will write a normal binding class with Lombok, but there is a small change, guys, because do you want to represent only response or you want to represent response with the links also? Is it looking like a regular response that we have developed, or it is displaying response with the hyperlink also? We are having a hyperlink also. So our binding class should be normal, or there should be some speciality in the binding class to represent the response with the hyperlink. Some speciality should be there. Generally, if I take normal Java class, it will that normal Java class variables will be represented as keys in the JSON. Now, along with the normal data, I am having a hyperlink also. Along with the normal data, I am having some hyperlink also. Okay, how we are going to create the binding class with the hyperlink here? Now, you see what is the speciality. You see what is the speciality in the binding class. How the binding class is different than regular binding class. I am opening my book.java class, which is going to act as a binding class. Right, guys? Okay, now here I am having a binding class. Remove all these things, man. Can I use @data? Can I use @data? Lombok. @data. No args constructor. No args constructor. Can you see any difference in the binding class? Can you see any difference in the binding class? Is it a plain binding class, or it is extending properties from some other class? Come on. Representational model. Representation model is coming from which package? Representational model is coming from which package? It is a normal, or it is coming from heteros package? It is coming from heteros package. Why we are extending this representational model? Representational model is the predefined class. What is this, guys? It is the predefined class. What is the purpose of this class? Base class for DTOs to collect the links. This is the base class for collecting the links. In order to create the response with the hyperlink in our binding class, we are extending the properties from representation model. Representation model class is from heteros package. So we have added heteros dependency in the pom.xml, and we are extending representation model class in our binding class. Now, what is the advantage of extending this class? So now can I say book is acting as a subclass for this superclass? Book is a subclass, representational model is a superclass. Can I call like that? Book is a subclass, representation model is a superclass. Now tell me, we are using inheritance. In this inheritance, can I access the methods of superclass in the subclass? By using subclass object, can I access superclass methods? Can I access superclass methods in the subclass? Yes, we can access it. Perfect. Now, create a binding class to represent a response. This is going to be my binding class. Here, regular binding class and this binding class is different, guys. In this binding class, I'm extending the properties from representation model, which is from heteros. This is the speciality in this class now. This is the speciality in this class now. This class is from heteros. Heteros package. Heteros. Okay? You should not get confused with this, guys. This is heteros. Now, create the REST controller to handle request and response. The last step is create REST controller to handle request and response. Create the REST controller to handle request and response. We have created a project with the dependencies. We have created a binding class to represent the response. To represent that response, we are extending the properties from representational model so that I can create the links in my response. This representational model is a predefined class which is available in the head use package. Then I am creating a REST controller to handle the request and response. Now, what is the last step, guys? What is the last step? Creating a REST controller. Creating a REST controller. Do you have any questions on this method? Do you have any questions on this method? What this method is doing? What this method is doing? Dummy data. What this method is doing, guys? This method is binded to a get request / books. It is producing application / JSON. I'm creating 3 book objects. I'm setting the data, hard-coded data. I'm creating one collection. This collection I am returning list of books. List of books. Is this clear? It is used to fetch all the data. In which format this method can produce the data now? Only JSON. It is going to produce the data in the only JSON format. Produces. Is there anything new in this method, guys? Already we discussed about this functionality. Is there anything new in this? Already we discussed about this kind of functionality. Already we discussed and we developed it. Already we discussed it and we developed it. Get all books is my method. This method is binded to a get request. The method URL pattern is /books, and this method is producing the response in the JSON format. Okay, I'm creating 3 book objects and I'm adding them to a collection and I'm returning the collection. Okay, no problem. Go to resources, application.properties. Can you see the port number? 9090. Chalo. Let's run this application. Forget about the link now. Just execute the normal method first. Close unrelated projects. Guys, and yesterday I have seen so many people are opening all the projects. Your IDEs will become slow. Now in my IDE, 36 projects are available. But all the projects are in the open state or it is in the closed state? Closed state. Currently, only 36 project is in the open state. How to close the remaining projects? Right click, close unrelated projects. Now, only this project is open. Let's run it. Run as boot app. My application running on the port number 9090. Books method is available. Books method is available, which is going to produce the books response in the JSON format. Application started. Chalo. Localhost colon 9090. Localhost colon 9090 / books. Okay. Guys, can you see the books data coming in the JSON format? Can you see the books data is coming in the JSON format? All the books records are coming in the JSON format. Can you see the JSON response? Okay. Okay. Now what is our requirement now? When I send a request for one book, I want that book data and I want a hyperlink to get all the books also. Now, there is one more method, guys, which is going to give you the response. Now see here. Is there any confusion in this method? There is a method which is binded to get request, which is book / ISBN is the path parameter. This method is returning the data in the book object format. It can produce the data in the JSON format. ISBN is a path parameter, creating the book object and returning the book object. Is there anything that is new here? Is there anything which is new here? No, same concept. In the below method we are returning multiple book objects. In the first method we are returning single book object by taking ISBN as a path parameter. In the second method we are returning all the book objects as a JSON. Same concept we have discussed already. Now what is the new concept is? The new concept is whenever we send whenever we are sending book response response, whenever a request comes to this method, whenever we are sending a book response, along with the book response, I want to create one hyperlink also in the response. Are you guys able to follow me? What is the new concept that we are implementing here? What is the new concept that we are implementing here? Are you able to follow me? Along with the book information, I want to construct one link and I need to include that link in the response. Okay, for that, 2 lines of code I am writing. What is that 2 lines of code? The first one is used to create the hyperlink. Second one is used to add the hyperlink to book object. That's it. How to create the link here, guys? Observe. WebMVC link builder is the class dot link to WebMVC link builder dot method on book rest controller dot get all books with relation as all books. Okay, what I mean to say is you create one link for a method which is available in the rest controller class under this method. I want to create a link for a class book rest controller and the method this method. That is the meaning of this code. WebMVC link builder dot link to WebMVC link builder is a predefined class dot link to WebMVC link builder dot method on book rest controller dot class dot get all books. I want to create a hyperlink for the class and this method. For get all books method, I want to create a hyperlink. Then the link name will be all links. That will be stored to a variable called with relation link object. Now B is what? Book object. B dot add. Add is what? Predefined method which is coming from representational model, superclass method. We are extending the properties from representational model. Na? Why we are extending the properties from representational model? To access this add method, guys. That's it. Now, my book class is acting as a subclass for the representation model. Using the subclass object, we can call the superclass method. Which method we are calling from the superclass? Add method we are calling. What is the parameter we are passing for the add method? Link object. What is this link object? Which is used to create the hyperlink for the get all books method which is available in the book rest controller. That's it. So this is normal book data and here I am creating a hyperlink. Hyperlink also I am setting to book object. Now save this, send a request /book/ ISBN 001 kuch bhi. Now are we able to get the hyperlink also in the response? If I send this request in the postman, you will get more clarity. Go to postman. It will clearly display to you what is the book data and what is the hyperlink that we are getting in the response. So 2 lines of code that is extra from our regular REST API. Creating a hyperlink, adding the hyperlink to the REST API response. That's it. Those are the new thing. That is the new thing. Remaining thing is same. We already developed it. Get localhost :9090/books. When I send the request to second method, I'm getting all the books data in the JSON format. When I send the request to this get books method, books second method, which is going to give you all the books data in the JSON format. But I'm interested to see book/path parameter ISBN 001. Click on send. Can you see that we got the response with book data and hyperlink? Can you see that we got the response with the hyperlink also? Can you see the response in the postman? How this hyperlink coming in the response? Because we are calling add method on the book object. We are adding the link to the book object. This data normally I am setting. ISBN, name, price, author I am setting manually through constructor. See here. I am setting this data manually through constructor. But ye kya hai? I am creating a link. How I am creating the link? WebMVC link builder dot link to WebMVC builder dot method on that class this method. For which class, which method you want to create the link that you can specify. Then I am storing that link into one variable. That variable I am setting to add method as a parameter. Add method is the predefined method which is coming from representation model. B is the book class object. By using book class object, we are calling add method. Subclass object can access superclass method. This is the example. Inheritance we are using. Now, when I send the request to book with ISBN, it will give you that book data along with the hyperlink in the response. When you send the request with the books method, it will give you all the books data in the JSON format. Is it difficult, guys? Anything difficult here? Anything difficult? Not able to understand? This is our first method where I am creating the link. Okay, the link creation may be a little bit confusion for you. Just check it, guys, how I am creating the link for that. WebMVC link builder dot link to this method with the relation. Now this is the new code that we have added. B.add method. This add method available in representation model. Representation model class. Hetios. And I am returning the book object. That method is creating the link for this below method, which is binded to get all books. It will construct the link for the second method. It is going to construct the link for the second method. When you send the request for first method will give the book response along with the link for the second method. Okay, this is our REST controller class. When we send the request for second method, configure the application port number and run it. Configure server port and run the application. Configure server port and run the application. Okay, server.port I am configuring as 9090. Server.port I am configuring as 9090. Run the application. Okay, when we send the request for second method, it will give all the books data in the JSON format. When we send request for second method, it will give all books information in JSON format. When we send the request for the second method, like http://localhost:9090/books. Okay, when we send the request for first method, it will give book information with hyperlink. When we send request for first method, it will give single book information with hyperlink to access all books, like below. Okay, now this is how we are getting response from first method. This is how we are getting the response from the first method. Let me take this. Let me display to you. I'm giving that in the class notes so that you can understand what is the URL and how I am getting the response in the Postman. Are you guys comfortable with this Hetios concept? How the response will come in the JSON format with the hyperlink? All books, it can be any name. Here I have given the name as all books. Now it can be any name. Whatever the name you give here, that name will be displayed here. You can give any name. Just I am giving this name all books because the below hyperlink is used to get all the books data. That's why I have given it as a all books. You can give any name there. It's not mandatory to give only this name. You can give any name. Got it, guys? Yeah. Look at this code. How we are using Hetios principle. we are using heteros principle. Look at this. You understand the project heteros? Binding class, huh? This is binding class, normal. Just extending the properties from this representation model. That's it. Why? There is a add method in the representation model. Using that add method, we can add the link to that binding class so that it will be displayed as a hyperlink in the response. Using add method, we can add the hyperlink. So in order to access the add method from the representation model, we are extending the properties from that class in our book. Public class book extends representation model. So here I'm creating the link. It is used, this line of code is used to create the link for the below method, and this line is used to add the link to the binding object. So when my method is returning a book object, it will send the response along with the data and hyperlink along with the data. That's it. Whatever the links that you want, you can create it, sir. How many links that you want, you can create those many links. Here, I have created one link. Na? Suppose if you want to create one more link, you can create it, multiple links. I want to create the link for one more method. You should have a method which will give second book data. Okay. Now, this link if you access, then it will give you all the books. Okay. So first method here is available. Send the request, got it. You can click this link also. When you click on this link, then it will send the request for that link. Click on send. Now you got the response. The links are clickable. We can click on that link also. Okay, Jitendra, you are not able to send the code, huh? Then keep your code in the Git repository and share it. Push your code to Git repository and share it. Okay. All right, guys. Are you clear with the heteros? Are you clear with the heteros now? What is heteros? How to work with heteros? Yeah, just revise it. Heteros nothing but hypermedia as an engine for application state. Heteros saying that we have to represent our REST API response in the hypermedia format like Google search engine. When you search for something in the Google, everything will come in the hypermedia format. Okay, so for example, I want to build one REST API like this. Whenever I send a request for the REST API method, I want to get the book data like this in the JSON. In that response, I want the heteros also. That means I want a link also. How can we do that? In order to develop a application with the heteros principle, we need to use one dependency called Spring Boot Starter heteros. By using this heteros, you can build such kind of responses. Now, steps to develop our project. I have created one project which is having web starter and which is having heteros starter, Lombok, DevTools. Then I have created one binding class. In this binding class, I'm using Lombok to generate setters, getters, constructors. Then I'm extending the properties from representational model, which is from heteros dependency. Why we are extending? To call the methods of this superclass. By using subclass object, we can call the superclass methods. Okay, create the REST controller to handle the request and response. Create the REST controller to handle the request and response. I am creating this method, first method, to get the response based on the ISBN as a path parameter. In this method, I am creating the hyperlink and I am adding that hyperlink to binding object. Which hyperlink it is creating? That hyperlink is binded to which method? The hyperlink I am creating to the second method. Get all books. When you click on the hyperlink, request will come to second method. Second method will give you all the books data. Then we are running the application and we are sending the request. We are able to see the response with the hypermedia format. We are able to see the response in the hypermedia format. Is this clear for all of you? Yeah, Vibor, I will explain the REST principles, sir. Don't worry, I will explain them. Next topic is that only, REST principles only. Already we have implemented all the principles practically. Just theoretically, I have to explain you the principles. Are you guys comfortable with this, Hetios? Right, good. Next topic is almost we are done with API development, guys. Almost we are done with our API development. Okay, now let's understand what are the principles we are following to develop our API. We have developed our API by following some principles. What are the principles we are following to develop our API? Let's understand. First, we are using REST. What is the full form of the REST? Representational State Transfer. What is REST, guys? Representational State Transfer. That is the full form of the REST. What is full form of the REST, guys? You can see REST full form in Java. Representational State Transfer is the architecture style that specifies a constraint such as uniform interfaces that if applied for a web service introduce desirable properties. Let's leave it. What is REST? REST stands for Representational State Transfer. This is the full form of the REST. This is the full form of the REST. Now REST is a architecture style to develop web services. What is REST? REST is a architectural style to develop web services for communications from one application to another application. From one application to another application. REST is a architectural style. REST is a architectural style to develop web services for establishing communications from one application to another application. Okay. Roy Fielding provided REST architectural principles. Roy Fielding provided REST architectural principles. REST architectural principles. What are the principles available? Unique addressability. First principle is unique addressability. Second principle is uniform constraint interfaces. Uniform constraint interfaces. Third principle is media representation. What is the third principle of the REST, guys? Media representation. Media representation. Then fourth principle, communication stateless. Fourth principle, communication stateless. Then fifth principle, Hetios. Fifth principle, Hetios. These are the 5 REST architectural principles given by Roy Fielding. Now we are developing REST APIs by following these principles only. Guys, already we have developed our REST APIs by following these principles. Now theoretically I will tell you what is this each principle meaning is. Practically we have already implemented this, but you don't know. Now let me clarify you what are the REST principles are available, where we have used these principles in our API development. Okay. Now can you tell me what is the full form of the REST? Can you tell me what is the full form of the REST? REST stands for Representational State Transfer. REST stands for what? Representational State Transfer. Representational State Transfer. Good. Now REST is a architectural style to develop web services for establishing communications from one application to another application. REST is the architectural style to develop web services for establishing communications from one application to another application. Roy Fielding provided REST architectural principles. What are the principles provided by Roy Fielding? One is unique addressability. Second one is uniform constraint interfaces. Third one is media representation. Fourth one is communication stateless. Fifth one is heteros. Do you already know about heteros? Do you already know about heteros? Today only we discussed. What is heteros? Heteros represents the response in the hypermedia format. Heteros represents the response in the hypermedia format. Now, unique addressability. Unique addressability represents that we should bind our REST API methods to unique URL patterns. Resource should be identified uniquely. That means every method you write in the REST API should have a unique URL pattern. Can you bind two methods to same URL pattern? Can you bind two methods to same URL pattern? No, that is what they are telling that. Unique addressability. Now see here, I have one method which is called books. Can I write another method with get request /books only in the project? Can I write one more method with the /books only? That will create a URL ambiguity problem. Always your URLs should be unique in the project. One method to another method should be differentiated with the unique URL. That is the first principle of the REST architecture, guys. Unique addressability. Who provided these principles? Roy Fielding. Roy Fielding provided REST architectural principles in that the first principle is unique addressability. Unique addressability represents that we should bind our REST API methods to unique URL patterns. Resources should be identified uniquely. Unique URL patterns. Second one, uniform constraint interfaces means we should bind all our REST API methods to HTTP protocol methods only. We should bind our REST API methods to HTTP protocol methods only because HTTP is universal. Everybody who is going to access our methods can understand easily, can understand our API easily. Now I'm writing the methods. Do I need to bind the methods to HTTP protocol methods? Yes, definitely. We need to bind our methods to HTTP protocol methods. If I don't bind my methods to HTTP protocol, can other people understand what is the purpose of my method? No. Uniform, constraint, same and unique. Uniform means same, constraint means limitation. Uniform means same, constraint means limitation. You need to bind your REST API methods to only HTTP protocol methods. Then only your clients can access your applications easily. Are we following these two principles already? Unique addressability, uniform constraint? Yes or no? Whenever you are developing a REST API, you need to give unique URL before. Always your method should have a unique URL pattern. That's it. How to resolve the ambiguity? Matlab unique URL pattern dena padega. Now I am writing two methods binded to get request. Two methods are having the same URL pattern or different URL pattern. This method is having /books. This method is having /book ISBN. URL patterns are same or URL patterns are different? Different. So am I able to resolve the ambiguity or am I creating the ambiguity? Am I creating the ambiguity or am I resolving the ambiguity? I'm creating the ambiguity, I'm resolving the ambiguity. Resolving the ambiguity means binding your methods to different URL patterns. If you bind your methods to different URL patterns, then we will use that. You got my point? You got my point? Yes. Now, what is the second principle? What is the second principle? Uniform constraint interfaces. What is the meaning of uniform constraint interfaces? All the methods should be binded to unique URL pattern. And all the methods should be binded to HTTP protocol methods only. All the methods should be binded to HTTP protocol only. Why? Our application is going to access by other applications across the world. People can access our application. So how people can understand our application? Based on HTTP methods only. Okay, if I want to get the data, I need to send a GET request. If I want to send the data, I should send a POST request. If I want to update the data, I should send a PUT request. If I want to delete the data, I should send a delete request. The HTTP user. Come on, HTTP is only for our applications or HTTP for universal? HTTP for the universal. HTTP for the universal protocol. So whatever the methods that you are writing, you need to bind your methods to HTTP protocol. That is called uniform constraint interfaces. Same and unique. All, if you write 10 methods also, bind them to HTTP protocol. That's it. Next one, media representation. Media representation means as per client requirement, our REST API should, as per client requirement, our REST API, as per client of media representation means as per client requirement, our REST API should deal with data. Should deal with request data and response data. Now, tell me, am I tightly coupling my application with only one format, or my application is dealing with multiple formats of the data? My application is tightly coupled with only one format of data, or my application dealing with XML data and JSON data? Multiple. That means media representation already we are doing. That means now whenever we take a REST API, there are multiple clients. Client 1, client 2, client 3, client 4. There are 4 clients available for our application. Client 1, which can be called as C1, and client 2, C2, client 3, C3, client 4, C4. Got it? Now, these clients are having different requirements, guys. Client 1 is sending a request and taking the response. The client 1 is he is a lover of XML. Client 1 is lover of the XML. So he is giving the input also in the XML format. He is expecting the XML also in the response. Client 2. Client 2 is the lover of JSON. Client 2 is the lover of JSON. Client 2 will give the input in the JSON and want the output also in the JSON. Is my REST API supporting for that? Input JSON, output JSON, input XML, output XML. My REST API supporting for only one